Once upon a time, in a magical land of castles, forests, and loyal friends, there lived a princess whose kindness was brighter than gold. But when jealousy and betrayal tried to steal her happiness, she discovered that courage and honesty are stronger than lies. Join me today, dear friends, as we travel into the enchanting tale of the goose-girl, a story of truth, bravery, and the magic of a kind heart. Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom surrounded by rivers, gardens, and mountains, there lived a princess named Eliza who was loved by everyone. Her golden hair shone like sunlight, her eyes sparkled like stars, and her smile warmed the hearts of all who met her. Yet it was not her beauty that made her special, but her kindness, as she cared deeply for her people and animals. She often visited the poor, comforted the sick, and played with children in the streets, bringing happiness wherever she went. Her parents, the king and queen, raised her with love and wisdom, teaching her to be gentle, humble, and brave. When she became old enough, her father decided she should marry a prince from a nearby kingdom to unite their lands. On the morning of her journey, the palace was alive with excitement as gifts were prepared, horses were readied, and farewells were spoken. The queen, worried for her beloved daughter, gave her a golden magic comb that could protect her if she ever faced danger. This comb, though small, carried great power, for it could call upon unseen forces if Eliza whispered her troubles to it. With her loyal maid to accompany her and her talking horse Falada by her side, Eliza set off happily toward her new home. The road stretched through forests, valleys, and rivers, and the air was filled with the promise of a new adventure. Eliza felt hopeful and excited, not realizing that jealousy was already forming in the heart of her companion. As they traveled, the maid watched Eliza with growing envy, for the princess seemed blessed in every way. She wore fine clothes, rode a magical horse, carried a golden comb, and was soon to marry a handsome prince. The maid, by contrast, had no riches, no gifts, and no honor, which made her heart heavy with bitterness. Instead of being grateful for her role, jealousy grew like a thorn inside her, whispering cruel thoughts each day. She began to imagine herself wearing the crown, living in the palace, and being loved by the prince. At last, her jealousy turned into a dark plan, and she decided she would steal Eliza's life for herself. One night, when the forest was silent and the stars glimmered above, the maid acted on her wicked thoughts. While Eliza slept peacefully, the maid crept close and snatched the golden comb from her belongings with greedy hands. Holding it tightly, she threatened to harm Falada, the loyal horse, unless Eliza agreed to give up her place. Eliza's heart filled with fear, for she could not bear to see harm come to her faithful companion. The princess, too gentle to fight and too kind to risk another's suffering, was forced to agree. With tears in her eyes, she realized that her happy future was slipping away into the hands of betrayal. The maid ordered Eliza to remove her royal gown, crown, and jewels, leaving her dressed only in plain servant clothes. She herself wore the shining dress and crown, admiring her reflection in a stream as if she were already a princess. Falada watched with sorrow, unable to stop the injustice against his true mistress, though his eyes shone with loyalty. Now the maid rode proudly upon Falada, while the royal princess walked barefoot on the road like a servant. Though Eliza's heart ached, she carried herself with dignity, her spirit unbroken by the cruel trick. The journey continued until they reached the gates of the prince's kingdom, where fate awaited them. At the castle gates, trumpets sounded and the people cheered for the bride they believed was the true princess. The maid bowed gracefully, smiled sweetly, and spoke in a practiced voice, convincing everyone of her false identity. The prince greeted her politely but felt something strange in his heart, as if the woman before him was not genuine. Meanwhile, Eliza was treated as nothing more than a servant, with no one recognizing her noble spirit. She was given the humble task of tending geese near the river, far away from the splendor of the palace. And so began her quiet life as a goose girl, though her destiny had not yet revealed its shining truth. Each morning, Eliza rose early to lead the geese to the pasture, guiding them gently with her calm and patient voice. The geese loved her, for she treated them kindly, fed them carefully, and sang to them as if they were her friends. The river beside the meadow sparkled under the sun, and there Eliza would often sit, singing songs of sorrow and hope. Her only comfort was Falada, tied knee by, who listened silently with sad but loyal eyes. She brushed his manner lovingly, whispering her troubles to him, though the world believed she was only a servant. Despite her hardships, her heart remained gentle, strong, and filled with hope for better days. One afternoon, while brushing Falada's manner, Eliza remembered the magic comb her mother had given her. Though it had been stolen, she trusted that its power was still connected to her pure and honest heart. Closing her eyes, she whispered, "A golden comb, please help me, show me a way to reveal the truth." The comb glowed faintly from afar, sending her plea into the air like a golden light carried by the wind. The gentle breeze picked up her words and carried them across fields, forests, and rivers, toward the palace. Unseen by all, the message floated toward the prince, who would soon hear the song of her sorrow. That evening, the prince stood by his window and heard a faint, sorrowful song carried on the wind. The voice was so pure and filled with longing that it stirred his heart and would not let him rest. He wondered who could sing with such beauty, sadness, and hope all at once, and his curiosity grew. Unable to ignore the call, he disguised himself as a commoner and left the palace quietly. Following the song, he arrived at the goose pasture, where he saw the humble goose-girl. Her gentleness struck him deeply, and he felt that there was more to her story than met the eye. The prince watched Eliza tend the geese with patience, singing softly while brushing Falada's manner with care. He noticed how she spoke to the horse as though he understood every word, and the horse's eyes shone in reply. At last, he approached her kindly and said, "You sing so beautifully, but there is sadness in your voice." Eliza looked up, surprised, but saw kindness in his eyes, and for the first time felt she could trust someone. When he asked why she spoke to Falada like a friend, Eliza hesitated but then sighed deeply. Slowly, she began to share the secret story of her betrayal, the stolen comb, and her lost identity. Eliza told him everything, how the maid stole her clothes, threatened Falada, and forced her into silence. She explained how the false princess now lived in the palace, while she was left to herd geese. Her eyes filled with tears as she spoke, but her voice remained calm and steady with dignity. The prince listened in silence, his heart aching with both sorrow and admiration for her courage. He could see her honesty and goodness shining through every word, unlike the false bride he had met. When she finished, he promised that her suffering would end, for the truth must come to light. That night, the prince returned to the castle, his mind racing with thoughts of the goose-girl's story. He knew she was telling the truth, for her kindness and honesty could not be faked or hidden. The false princess's arrogance had always made him uneasy, and now he understood the reason why. He decided he would uncover the truth before the court, but he needed a clever plan. The next day, he invited the false princess to a royal feast and prepared questions only the real bride could answer. In his heart, he was certain that the goose-girl was the true princess meant to be his bride. At the feast, the prince asked the false princess about her journey, her family, and her loyal horse. She faltered and gave vague answers, unable to recall details that Eliza would never have forgotten. The court whispered among themselves, noticing her nervousness and lack of sincerity. The prince smiled but did not expose her immediately, wishing to gather everyone's attention for the truth. He arranged for Eliza to be brought to the great hall the next morning, still dressed as a humble goose-girl. The time had come for the kingdom to see who truly carried the heart of a princess. The next day, Eliza entered the hall with quiet dignity, her simple clothes unable to hide her noble spirit. The prince asked her to tell her story before the king, queen, and all the court. Her voice was steady, filled with sorrow yet shining with truth as she described the maid's betrayal. The people listened in astonishment, many with tears in their eyes as they realized her suffering. As she finished, the golden comb glowed brightly in the hall, confirming her words beyond doubt. The court gasped, and all eyes turned to the false princess, who trembled with fear. The false princess could no longer deny her lies, and her jealousy was revealed before the kingdom. The king and queen declared her unworthy of the crown and stripped her of all honor. She was sent away from the palace forever, banished for her cruelty and greed. The people who once cheered her now turned their backs, ashamed of her wickedness. Meanwhile, Eliza stood quietly, her head bowed with humility, though her heart felt lighter at last. The prince took her hand gently, showing the world that the true princess had been found. Eliza was welcomed with love, respect, and celebration, her true identity restored before all. The king and queen embraced her warmly, apologizing for their mistake and praising her courage. The prince admired her even more, for she had endured hardship with dignity and strength. Falada was honored for his loyalty, given the finest stable and care as a treasured companion. The people rejoiced, singing songs of the brave goose-girl who never gave up hope. At last, Eliza's sorrow was lifted, and her happiness shone like the sun over the kingdom. Not long after, the prince invited Eliza to walk with him in the palace gardens filled with flowers. He spoke of her kindness, her honesty, and the way she touched every heart with her gentle spirit. Then, kneeling before her, he asked her to become his wife and queen, promising to cherish her forever. Eliza's eyes filled with joyful tears as she realized her dream of true love had finally come. She accepted his proposal with a smile as bright as morning light breaking through the clouds. Their love, built on truth and respect, would shine as a beacon for all to see. The day of their wedding arrived, and the kingdom was filled with music, laughter, and endless celebration. Flowers decorated the streets, bells rang from the towers, and people gathered to cheer for their beloved princess. Eliza's parents traveled from their land, overjoyed to see their daughter safe, honored, and happy again. The prince and Eliza exchanged vows of love, loyalty, and kindness before the court and people. It was a grand day, filled with blessings, joy, and a feast that lasted long into the night. Everyone agreed it was the happiest wedding the kingdom had ever seen. The story of Eliza's courage spread quickly, reaching every home and village across the land. People sang songs about the goose-girl who stayed strong and never gave up hope. Children listened eagerly by the fireside as parents retold the tale of honesty and truth. The false princess was forgotten, but the true one was remembered with love and admiration. Eliza became a shining example of kindness, showing that true beauty lies in the heart. The kingdom rejoiced in peace, harmony, and the promise of a bright future. Falada, the loyal horse, was honored as a hero and cared for with the finest food and shelter. He became a symbol of loyalty, reminding everyone of the bond between the princess and her companion. Eliza often visited him, stroking his mane and whispering her gratitude for his silent support. The prince, too, admired Falada, knowing the horse had shared Eliza's pain and sorrow. Songs were even sung about the faithful steed who never abandoned his mistress. Falada lived happily, surrounded by love, just as his beloved princess did. The golden comb was placed in a crystal case and kept in the royal treasury as a sacred treasure. It was no longer just a gift but a symbol of love, truth, and a mother's protection for her child. Whenever Eliza looked upon it, she remembered her journey, her trials, and her triumph. It reminded her that kindness and honesty, though tested, always find their way to victory. The comb became a family heirloom, passed down through generations of queens. It remained a shining symbol of courage and the bond between a mother and daughter. In time, Eliza became queen beside her loving husband, ruling with fairness, kindness, and wisdom. She never forgot her days as a goose-girl, which taught her humility, strength, and patience. Because of this, she treated servants and workers with special care, knowing their lives were important too. The people adored her, for she listened to their needs and shared their joys and sorrows. Her reign brought peace, prosperity, and love, making the kingdom stronger than ever before. Eliza was remembered not only as a beautiful queen but as a wise and gentle one. The tale of the goose-girl became a lesson told to every child in the kingdom. It taught that jealousy and lies bring only sadness, while honesty brings light and joy. It showed that true courage lies in patience and kindness, even during great hardship. Parents reminded their children that even if life seems unfair, truth will always shine through. The story became a guide for living with goodness, honesty, and respect for others. Generations repeated it, ensuring that the lessons of Eliza's life would never be forgotten. Eliza and the prince lived happily together, raising their family with love, care, and wisdom. Their children grew up learning the values of honesty, courage, and kindness from their mother's story. The kingdom flourished under their rule, filled with laughter, music, and peace. The people lived in harmony, inspired by the gentle queen who once tended geese. Her story continued to be told as a source of hope for all who faced struggles. And so, her life became a happily ever after that never faded. Thus ends the tale of Eliza, the goose-girl, who endured sorrow but never lost her shining spirit. Her courage and honesty led her from hardship to joy, from betrayal to love, and from servant to queen. Her story traveled beyond her kingdom, carried by travelers, sung in songs, and whispered in bedtime tales. Children smiled when they heard it, learning that truth and kindness always win in the end. The people remembered her as a princess of both beauty and heart, a queen of wisdom and grace. And so, she and her prince, Falada, and all her people truly lived happily ever after. And so, the true princess was restored to her rightful place, the wickedness was washed away, and love and kindness ruled the kingdom once again. The goose-girl reminds us that even in the darkest moments, honesty will always shine through, and gentle hearts will never be forgotten. Thank you for joining this magical adventure, my dear friends. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep believing, and remember, kindness is the strongest magic of all.